everybody. Today, I'm so excited. I have some of my good friends here in the village that I've been wanting to interview for a long time. Ron and Barbara Owens. They're a magnificent couple. They've done so much in this village. I don't know how I could never keep up with them. They're amazing, absolutely amazing. And of course, you all know about the wonderful things that they've already done. But today, we're going to talk about their personal life, which should be very interesting, I would think. So we'll start with Ron. Good morning, Ron.
Good morning. Peace and happiness to you.
Peace and happiness.
Yeah. Before we say anything, Barbara and I are very honored that you've asked us to do this. We've admired the work of KLVW-TV, and for you to ask us to come in is very nice. Thank you.
Thank you.
So, about us, Barbara and I met after 11 years of Barbara having been divorced and maybe being a widower for 11 years. And I had tried going online. I wanted to be in a relationship again. And I felt that my best shot was going to be online dating. So I went online, and online dating was brand new. And I was living in Montclair, 13 miles from Midtown Manhattan, and the service was sending me women from Midtown Manhattan. And my next book may be about my adventures there, but essentially I decided that if I was going to meet someone, they had to meet three criteria. Number one, are you within 5 years of the age you're claiming to be online? Yeah, because somebody would say, well, I'm 58 years old, which was right. Except I'd go and meet them, and I thought they sent their mother or their grandmother, So when I got into conversation with somebody, I'd say, so what year did you graduate from high school? And they'd say, So that was number one. Number two, the picture you're showing, is that a picture of you? Or if it is, how long ago was that picture taken? And then number three, are you truly single? Because I did have an experience with a very nice woman, and as we got into our conversation, she said that her husband was a sea captain, and he was out at sea for 6 to 9 months of the year, and that's what she was looking for. So I was out of it. But anyway, so that was my pre-Barbara experience.
Okay. Well, I was divorced for 11 years, and would meet people. I joined a gym at one point, and met people there through the church, and it was not fun. Where I worked, I was probably one of the oldest people there. Most of the kids were 20-year-olds.
Wow.
But one of my coworkers, who was the same age as my son, basically said, she's been doing online dating, and she said her mother even does it. You should try it. So I did. And, 9 months into my dating, I ran into Ron. Do you want to continue from there?
Yeah. So, let's see.
You did it for 11 years, on and off.
Yeah. And I got very discouraged. I was almost ready to quit.
Understand.
Having lost my wife, I went through quite an emotional, spiritual time. I wouldn't ever care to be called a religious person, but I am a person of deep faith, and very spiritual. And I attended a church service just when I was going through this turmoil, and the gospel that day said about the Savior being in the boat, casting his net. One more time. Do it one more time. So I said, all right, I'm going to do it one more time. And for the first time, I decided to look to see what the competition was. What are the other guys writing, And I discovered we were all writing the same thing. We like to go out for dinner. We like walks on the beach, going to the theater. And I said, I have got to come up with something different. I thought about it for a little while, and then what I did is I crafted a story in the third person.
Wow.
So what I did was I wrote, once upon a time in a North Jersey village, there was a man who was very lonely. He had lost his wife. He and his daughter and pet poodle, were very busy and very active, but they missed, a good relationship. And certainly the man was looking for a happy ending, happily ever after. And the man's teenage daughter said, Dad, surely in the neighborhood or in a nearby village, there's a fair maiden who would like to know you a little bit better. And when she reads this story, she's going to right away sit down and write, Dear Ron, ... So I wrote it, I submitted it, and within a week I had close to 40 responses from women. And they were all like, oh, wow, what a wonderful story. Oh, that was so interesting. Oh, my gosh, tell me more. Well, if they had read the story, they would know all the important parts,
You touched on every.
But not one of them started Dear Ron, as I had requested.
Okay. So in my time of being online dating, I looked to see what men were interested. So one of the things all the men wrote down is golf. And I said, okay. So I took golf lessons, even bought golf clubs. One of the good things that did happen is I did get to play golf 3 times with my dad before he passed, so that was really cool.
So good commitment.
So I would, you'd look at all the different things, and one day I came across this one that said, once upon a time, there was a man from a mountain town in New Jersey, and I read the whole thing, and I said, this can't be true. It can't be true. So I said, let me give it 24 hours before I answer it. So then I had to make sure I knew how to find him again, because sometimes you can't find the same person again. Yes, because there's a lot of people on there.
Okay.
So the next day I looked at it and I said, I'm going to write it. So I said, Dear Ron, which is what he used to. And I said, I'm a maiden from a nearby village. And we were only 2 towns away from each other. And, went on for there. And then you got that. And
So
contacted each other. And
well, Barbara did, follow the instruction, Dear Ron, and
I follow instructions a lot.
oh yes, yeah. Fast forward, architectural committee.
I know. Guess what?
So anyway, we met at a restaurant halfway between Montclair and Caldwell.
Which we both would go to.
We were both familiar, and it was a little pizzeria, because all the women I had dated, I figured, just go in, have a cup of coffee, that was it. And we got talking, and Barbara explained how she and her former husband had built a summer home in upstate New York. I said, oh, really? Where in upstate New York? She said, oh, way up north. Now, typically people in our area refer to upstate New York as Westchester or Tarrytown,
No, I said no, north of Utica.
Yeah, and my ears picked up, and she said,
I finally said,
Yeah.
"Oh, George."
Yeah, well, if I had had a mouthful of soda, it would have come out my nose because that's where my father was born.
Oh, wow.
And so then, we had that in common. And then as we talked some more, she said,
Ate dinner and ended up leaving the one restaurant and enjoying each other's company. We went out for coffee after our
yeah.
dinner and everything.
So,
This is where,
yeah. So then she said, so I noticed that you're a professional magician. I said, yeah. I said, I was the magician at the Bronx Zoo for 17 years. She said, oh, yeah, but did you ever do kids' birthday parties? I said, oh, hundreds and hundreds of them.
all right. So that night after our first date, I said, I know I had a magician for one of my son's birthday parties. Mm-hmm. So I went through the picture albums and I found a sleeve of 8 pictures of Ron in my living room. It was at his 6th birthday party, and there was even a picture of Ron and my son in the foreground, and I'm sitting on a chair in the background, so it's just the 3 of us. And I presented it to Ron.
Wow.
And
so that 6-year-old kid is now my 43-year-old stepson.
yeah.
Oh, my goodness.
Yeah.
So
I guess it lasted.
So it was magic,
Magic. It was
That's
really,
wonderful.
really cool.
What a great story.
Yeah. You can't make it up,
But you did. But all the right tenants in there so that you know.
Mm-hmm.
So what did you do before you guys got married? Like, what was your interest?
Let's see. Well, I raised three kids, more by myself. I mean, and had to get a job. I was very lucky that in the beginning I didn't have to work.
Yeah.
Before I met my first husband, I worked at IBM. Mm-hmm. Started out as a secretary, went to the accounts receivable section, and then ended up becoming a systems engineer.
Wow.
So working with programming and everything. And after when I was pregnant with my first, I ended up, being able to stay home with my kids for a long time. I was very lucky with that. Yeah.
Me too.
But when we were getting divorced, I needed to go back to the workforce.
Oh, yeah, that's
8 years after I had been in there, and you kind of like, what do you do?
Yeah, it's like shell shock.
Computers have changed a little bit in 8 years.
A little.
So I went back as a secretary. Mm-hmm. And totally boring. I'm sorry to any secretaries out there. But, I was on the job for about 3 weeks when one of the partners I was a secretary for said, we've got this job in hedge fund accounting. Would you be interested in it? Because he saw my background. I said, sure, it sounds good. Didn't hear anything from him for another month. And he came to me, this was after I was there for less than 2 months. He said, you're the best secretary I ever had, but, if you want this job, it's yours. I said, okay, sounds good. So I was only 2/3 of the way through Excel for Dummies. I kind of learned the rest on the spot. And I worked in the company for almost 20 years. Well, it was, put this way, I worked in the same job for 20 years, but our company got sold 5 times in between, and my piece, kind of got grandfathered in all the way through.
So you were lucky.
And that's what I did until I retired and moved down here.
But there's something else. How about Girl Scouts?
When with my kids, I was a Cub Scout leader with my son. I had a son and 2 daughters. Then I was the Girl Scout leader for both my daughters' Girl Scout troops, coordinated Girl Scout cookie sales for the town, and was in the church. I was a Sunday school teacher for 2-year-olds.
God bless you.
For almost 20 years for that. And, I kind of I organized a lot of things.
A lot of fun things.
Fun things. I did church dinners.
Well, I heard you had a lot of great expeditions with the Girl Scouts.
Yeah, we did a lot of cool things.
Yeah,
camping. Yeah, we did camping, and it was a lot of fun. Very a lot of fun.
You're a fun girl.
Yeah.
What did you do before?
Okay, so I started the first of 5 careers, not jobs, 5 careers.
Careers.
I was a vocal music teacher, started in the Nutley School District, was there for 5 years, and then the West Orange School District for 20 years. And I totally and completely love that. And fast forward, I'm still in touch with many of my students. In fact, an hour ago, I got a text from one of my former students up in Alaska. So anyway, it was vocal music, but I was always doing the magic on the side. But what was a hobby with the magic was becoming more of a career. And I started doing the magic, and the combination with the music, I became the music director for professional magic shows in New York City and ultimately other parts of the world. But I was doing that, and then that little tiny company of me doing magic became an agency. I became a licensed agent, and that morphed into a full-scale special event production company. And my late wife, whose name was Barbie, she and I became internationally certified special event producers, and we did produce special events for major corporations all over the world. When I look back on some of the events that we did, it was just incredible. But we learned the whole concept of teamwork, working with other people, because we were into entertainment, period. But we hooked up with a fabulous caterer and a fabulous lighting and sound and staging company, tent rental company, and we created a team. And we did things like the 150th anniversary of Kennard Lines, the opening of the Constitution Center in Philadelphia, lots of things. So, and it was very heady. My wife and I owned one of those big homes in Montclair on the mountain, and everything was great and wonderful and terrific until my wife was diagnosed with bone marrow cancer. And 3.5 years later, she passed away. And at that point, I had no interest in continuing special events or performing or anything.
I can understand that.
And so many people helped me, because here I was. I owned a multi-million-dollar company. I had a 13-year-old daughter who had just lost her mother, had the big house in Montclair, and it was a nightmare. But so many people helped me. I said, you know what? I would like to help other people.
And you're doing that every day.
And so what I did is I sold my company, and I used the proceeds from the sale to go to NYU and get my certification in thanatology, which is the study of death and dying. From there, I went to Montclair State for another master's degree in counseling, and I became a bereavement counselor with Hospice of New Jersey, and then later with the Holy Name Medical Center in Teaneck. And, that's how things progressed. But I want to go back to when I was doing music and magic together, because at one point I was performing at Caesars Boardwalk Regency in Atlantic City. And after our last performance, a very nice couple came forward, and they were asking, the gentleman was asking me about my equipment, because he had never seen the electronic accordion organ. And we're talking, he said, I play the accordion too, and would you like me to help you get stuff out to the car? And I'm thinking, oh yeah, boy, would I ever. So that would be just great. And I said, let's go out for coffee. Well, the guy was Dr. Peter Sturm and his wife Paula Sturm, and that was 43 years ago. But I have remained friendly with them, you know.
Paula Stern lives.
Well, yeah, that's kind of where I'm going. You know, we stayed in touch over the years, had many, many fabulous events, a lot of tears, a lot of laughs, and ultimately, they moved into Lavalette, a home that Paula's father had built on the beach, like in Lavalette. It was the water, the sand, the boardwalk, their house. And came Superstorm Sandy, and it lifted the boardwalk. The boardwalk ripped against the side of their house. And so at one point, Peter and Paula Sturm came and stayed with us for a little while, but they realized that, you know, they really wanted to be back closer, because they said, you know, they're going to be rebuilding our house.
And it wasn't going to happen in
it wasn't, yeah.
years.
Yeah, it took a lot longer. But anyway, they took off. And after about a month, we got a phone call from them, all excited. They said, oh, we found a great place to live. I said, where? They said, Manchester. I said, Vermont?
Manchester.
Vermont? They said, no, New Jersey. I said, I didn't know there was a Manchester, New Jersey. Oh, yeah, it's by Toms River. Well, Toms River is where one of my hospice offices were, on Bailey Road. And I said, oh, that's nice. I said, tell me about it. They said, well, it's a gated 55-plus community. I thought, oh. I don't want to know anybody that lives in a gated 55-plus community. I said, what's it called? They said, called Leisure Village West. I said, no, don't get around. What's it called? So it's called Leisure Village. I said, leisure, you know, what do they have, walker racers and stuff like that?
Sounds like my son.
And they said, oh, no, it's a great place. So anyway, Barbara and I came down to make fun of them, you know, and we
drive in the way, and we realized
went through the 70 gate.
there's all these trees, and it's not cookie cutter. The roads are curvy.
Oh, yeah, it's kind of fun.
And you know, it was beautiful. We
Like
kind
a
of like
fairy
said,
tale.
yeah.
And when we asked how much the places cost, you know, so
Brainer.
Barbara and I looked at each other and said, you know, this is too good a deal to pass up. We did not look at any other place. In fact, we had known someday we were going to retire, but we had no plans whatsoever, and everything just fell into place, and
we're here.
and here we are, and we have made some very, very beloved friends here in the village, some dear friends.
Yeah.
So,
And you're one of them.
Oh, thank you. Actually, when I got here, these were the people that I met first. I had gotten approval to move into my home, and I went down to maintenance, and on the way back, Dee from the farm club and Al were sitting there and said, come on in, and they said, oh, tonight you gotta go, because
Because it's Thursday.
I said, it's Thursday, so what? You know, what am I going to do with Thursday? I don't know anybody. And I said, what am I going to do? I got to bring something, don't I? No, you don't have to bring anything. And then they said, well, you got this cake here. Why don't you just cut it, slice it, and bring this cake? I said, that's all I have to do. I said, okay. So I brought the cake, and we were meeting out in the veranda over there behind Willow. And I was so amazed. I made so many friends that night. It was magnificent. It was warm and friendly and happy, and it was just perfect. And I wish everybody could get there and meet the people. You know, it goes up and down, and because people have other things to do too. But this is a real jumping off point. If you haven't gotten there, get there.
Yeah, thank you. And a little of the backstory for that. When Barbara and I did finally move here, we didn't know anybody at all.
Did I?
Yeah.
Peter and Paula had moved back to Lavalette, and so we stayed in touch with them. We joined the Moose Club in Ortley, and lovely people over there. However, Barbara and I didn't really fit in because we weren't fishermen. We didn't own a boat. We didn't lose our home in the superstorm, which is the commonality that united all of them. And we said, oh, you know, we got to meet people in Leisure Village West. So we started going to different clubs. Without exception, every club we walked into, we were invisible. Nobody got up and came over and said, hello, who are you? Welcome. Would you like to join us? Nothing.
Oh,
right?
yeah.
And in two cases, I don't want to mention the clubs, that in two cases we just turned around, just walked right out. And we were really discouraged. So we went down to visit Barbara's friends,
My friend, Honey Spitzmiller,
Honey Spitzmiller, who now lives in Leaserville.
and I've known her for 30 some odd years.
Yeah.
Or 40 now.
And she said, you know, come on down. So we did. And when we arrived, she said, oh, it's really good you're here today because it's Friday. And I said, well, so what? They said, no, we have a thing called Because It's Friday. We get together because it's Friday. We don't have any programs. We don't have anything. People bring stuff. You just sit around. And I said to Barbara, wouldn't that be a cool thing to have? So when we returned to Leisure Village West, the Facebook pages were just starting, and the unofficial and the village, the LVW Village Voice, and we put a little thing, on a get together and stuff. And on that August evening, we had 12 people, and
I wasn't even one of them. I was in California visiting my son at the time. We had talked about it ahead of time or whatever.
So, and we said, well, this isn't for everybody, but it'll be a nice way to meet people. And something happened. I think it's okay if I share this. The thing that ignited my enthusiasm for this kind of an activity is I met Carl Brignola. And Carl said that he had lived up in North Jersey. I was very interested. Oh, really? What kind of work were you in? And he said he worked with dental supplies.
Oh, yeah.
And I said, whereabouts? He said, well, all over the place, but a lot of people in Bergen County. I said, did you ever know Dr. Peter Sturm? He said, oh, yeah, Peter, he was somebody I knew very, very well. I said, well, that woman over there is Paula Sturm, who is his widow. Yeah. And
it's like,
right? And I said, yes.
This is the beginning.
It for me was an affirmation that, that it had some merit. And some of the stories we hear about people reuniting today for this taping is Monday, April the 28th. And our last, because it's Thursday, was the 362nd time we have gotten together.
and even during COVID, we Zoomed. So there's so many lonely people, and every Thursday we would Zoom.
Yeah.
But we've met wonderful people. And when people say, oh, if it wasn't for Because It's Thursday, I wouldn't know this. And we encourage people to talk about the clubs and activity. We always make announcements about what's going on, meetings coming up or plays or anything.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Everybody has a voice.
Yeah.
And then we always ask if there are birthdays, and we make sure people get acknowledged for their birthdays. We sing to them and everything.
And anniversary.
Anniversary, yeah.
Yeah, it's a lot of fun. One of the great things that you did that I thought was so much fun was like, what unusual things have you done in your life?
Yes.
You know, and people, there was one fellow there said that I went to school with Chubby Checkers and different occupations. And you look at these people and you say, you know.
One of the things we did too is we'll go around, where did you come from? Pass the microphone around, where did you come from and what did you do? And there was one night that there were 3 women there that ended up, they were living in the same town within 3 blocks of each other.
Really?
And they all went to the same school.
Yeah.
And
they were, slightly different grades, but I mean, they didn't know each other, and it was kind of really cool.
yeah.
That is neat. I like the idea a lot.
So some of the offshoots from Because It's Thursday, we have been doing the Trunk and Treat, which is a Halloween thing. It's always a lot of fun. We do the Santa cruise around. That's something that started with Because it's
like Memorial Day, Labor Day, 4th of July. We do all those.
So people say to Barbara and me, why do you do all this stuff? Because we can.
Yeah. Well, we can.
We're not, I am realistic enough, I will not always be able to maintain this pace, but right now the good Lord has graced us with the energy and good looks and humility.
Oh, I forgot about that. Yes, very humble.
Yes.
So anyway, yeah.
But it's a beautiful thing because you bring so much to the community.
Thank you.
You do. You really.
Well, it's our home.
Yeah.
And all the people that live here, you're lucky that we have people that are so energetic, exciting, always have new ideas. Always. I mean, I don't know how you spring up with these ideas all the time. I just don't know. Amazing things. Well, it's Easter. We're going to wear our Easter bonnets, and then somebody comes with ears that flopping down. It's just too much fun.
It's fun.
And good times. And good times are what we need.
What about at Halloween when we wrap people up in toilet paper? There's mothers there. That's fun.
That's fun. That's a wonderful thing. It's good because, it's the time of your life to have the time of your life here. You even have a sign outside when you're coming in.
That's really cool.
That was a connection because my first semester at Montclair State College in 1961, the Dramatic Club put on the play The Time of Your Life by William Saroyan. And on the front of the program was Saroyan's philosophy of life. In the time of your life, live so that in that good time you bring joy and happiness. Well, I embraced that. And when I saw the thing, I said, it's a sign,
Yeah.
So,
and the music that you do, that brings so much.
I'm so thrilled at some of the new things. Tim Irby has brought the open mic. It's terrific. Sue Lang has brought the karaoke.
And then
Troubadours.
Yeah.
Tuesday Troubadours. Everybody
sing along, open to everybody.
Yeah.
You just come down and the word you can read from the book and sing, and you don't have to really.
You don't have to be a good singer because there's enough of us. that aren't good singers.
We can work it out.
And the music is loud enough that it kind of
Yeah, it kind of covers it. And it's just more fun. And fun is what we need.
Yeah.
Good laugh is helps the
And-
endorphins in our little heads.
And that's a perfect segue to the end of what I wanted to say here. Anybody who's counting, I said I had 5 careers. Well, if anybody's counting, I've only mentioned 4 of them. Okay,
I mentioned that.
so
I noticed.
number 4 was bereavement counselor, and I worked on a team with a medical doctor, a psychiatrist, a nurse. You know, we had teams in the hospice, and it was our protocol to attend wakes and funerals of our patients. And at one point, the psychiatrist and I were going into a funeral home, opened the door, we heard all this raucous laughter. And I turned on, you know, like I could hear people inside saying, "Oh, remember the time Eddie knocked over the beer and the dog lapped it up and the dog was," and everybody's going. And I'm thinking, what am I missing here? What don't I understand? The psychiatrist said it's called healing. I said, what do you mean? He said, it is a proven psychological fact that laughter is as powerful to heal the spirit and soul as crying is. I said, oh, really? He said, yeah, look it up. I did. I spent a couple months going to the medical library at Holy Name any chance I got, and I studied, you know, what laughter was all about. Well, then they got word of me having an interest, and I was invited to talk to the doctors at Holy Name about laughter. I mean, here's me, a magician for kids' birthday parties, going to talk to world-class physicians in a major medical center. I said, yeah, I'll do it. And they were very interested, very receptive, very kind. The next thing I know, I got a call from Rutgers University, you know, would I do a presentation? And that became my last career. And I did a presentation in Thailand. I've done it twice in Alaska.
And you've done it here.
I've done it here a couple times for
Did it at the library.
yeah.
Yeah.
So
Thank you for that, because I truly believe that laughter is the best medicine.
laughter is the best medicine, but it'll never replace the Heimlich maneuver.
Yeah.
So,
You got a good point there.
Yeah.
Well, it's been real fun having you guys.
thank you so much.
Thank you for inviting us. Yeah.
Yeah.
Such fun to be with. And I hope that you can all come to, because it's Thursday, and to some of the other programs that Ron and Barbara do. And I just thank you all for listening. And just remember, this is a place to have the time of your life. And I love you.